Hello there, I'm Cameron Emmanuel Burns reporting for FinTech Futures, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Jose Luis Navarro, Head of Open Banking Strategy at BBVA. First off, how are you today? How are you enjoying FinovateEurope?
Well, I'm really happy to stay here. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the networking. I'm enjoying the speeds, and I'm enjoying the company. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
super. And I think maybe later on today you're speaking on a panel about open banking to start. So to start with, can you give us an overview of how the open banking and open finance landscape has evolved in recent years, both in the EU and across BBVA's other markets?
Okay. Well, there is kind of a common lining in Europe. It started with the regulation. Was the PSD2? Actually, was the Kickstarter. Not for all the banks, at least, to have APIs. And then we are evolving now that most of the banks are trying to do something beyond the PSD2. Okay, because PSD2 is like restricted scope, and that's why we have so many banks in Europe that have started the race. For the rest of the countries on the footprint, we have, for example, Mexico. We have the FinTech law, and the FinTech law is similar to PSD2, but fundamentally different on the way that treats the partners, because it asks the partners to be regulated as a bank. So that's a real problem. Okay. Whereas Colombia, that has been just regulated, it has a really friendly, bank-friendly regulation for open banking. So every single country we are in, we know they are either developing the law or already released it, and that's the kickstart. Okay. So actually, we see open banking is blooming.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And in the UK, it's been reported that banks are a bit skeptical about the commercial value open banking has to offer and the lack of commercial returns it may have. What do you think there is a way to monetize it, and what are the key takeaways from your panel that you're going to be talking about later?
Well, I have to agree that open banking itself is difficult to monetize. Okay, first, we are talking about the regulatory open banking. It's a given set of functions, and actually with a given set of instructions of how not to monetize it, at least PSD2. So the one monetizing the PSD2 APIs are the fintechs.
I see.
So is the bank's data moving through the fintechs, and the fintechs monetizing. That's why I was telling you that we are trying to move all the banks that we are in this race to the beyond open banking. Why? Because in beyond open banking or beyond regulation, we can get agreements and we can get deals. It's a B2B relationship where, of course, we can monetize directly or indirectly. I can get, for example, more customers. I can get accounts. That's an indirect monetization. Okay, I can avoid a big enterprise company leaving me because I don't have the APIs. That's a different kind of monetization, but it's monetization, right? So that's why there is a big room for monetizing, but where we don't see much room for monetizing right now is in the current regulation. I guess PSD3 and the PSR and the FIRA will try to change that. Let's see, because it's like 2-3 years to come.
And so what role do you feel that regulators have to play in enabling the full benefits of open banking and allowing it to flourish? And have they been quick enough to respond to this new technology?
Well, for me, the role of the regulator has to be to set up the playing field. Okay, like we have banks. Okay, what the bank has to comply with to enter and play. We have fintechs. What do the fintechs need to do for playing? And we have, for example, like things Belvo and so forth. What do these intermediaries have to comply with for playing? Besides that, I think it's good also to put a standardization. Okay, why? Because now open banking has several standards. We have to come up with only one. But then I'm not expecting the regulators to tell me what product to offer, because for me the product to offer has to be more with the market needs, the customer needs, not what the regulator thinks the needs. So that's why I think, or I would like to have a switch on the mentality of the regulator. How fast they are, like we are talking about, for example, in the PSD2, a minimum consensus. But they are not fast, and actually the minimum viable product is too restricted because it's difficult to reach a consensus with a wider spread of regulation.
Super. And so open banking, of course, involves the sharing of a lot of data. Does having access to that data come with the additional obligations for banks now, do you think?
Well, in reality, you think about it, banks have data since we started. Okay, so we used to have the data of the customers because we did ask, before it was paper, but we asked for a lot of data. And we still have the habits, we have all the transactions, and we have the loans. And so we have data, it's not something new. What is new now is that the regulation and the GDPR tell us that the end customer has the possibility of deciding how to use some of that data on their own benefit, which is cool. Okay, but it really doesn't add much more responsibility on the banks. We are used to have data. We have been monitored about breach of security data always. So there is not a different fundamental difference with the current situation.
And on that, how do today's customers feel about sharing their financial data with big banks? And do they understand the benefits of open banking, do you believe? And how have you gone about at BBVA of communicating these benefits to your customers?
Okay. First, I think customers are willing to share the data, but first, they are not informed when and how to do so. So part of BBVA's campaign is when we have a product that needs sharing of data, explain really clearly, we need you to share this data for what will the benefit for you, and what will we do with that data? Of course, if the data is in another bank. If the data is in my bank, it will be another bank's task to do so, right? Asking the data from me. But then I think they are not against it, but it's not the main priority of a customer to share the data. So it has to be on demand basis when they want to achieve certain product, and then we tell them, okay, if you share the data, maybe easier for you, better conditions, faster. And of course, there is reluctance from the customers sharing. They don't realize that that data is the same data I have in my bank, but this is another bank. So it's some of them understand, some of them don't. I think all banks, and I mean all banks, like for example in Europe, we have to do a much better job of making public what is this about the consent and make it like a trademark.
I see.
Like a trademark, same as like the wireless. The wireless image, like okay, this is open banking image. That means that there is a trust behind. Okay, we have not done so. It's like one-to-one effort.
And that was really interesting. Thank you. And we kind of touched on this before, but could you go a bit more into looking ahead to the impending arrival of PSD3? What impact do you think that will have on the open banking and finance space?
Well, I think PSD3 is an attempt to correct all the shortcomings of PSD2.
Right.
Okay, because PSD3 was released, as I told you, as a minimum viable product, and banks, mainly banks, complained.
Right.
Why did we complain? Because first, it was not an even field. That means banks have to share data, but you can't take money from that.
Yeah.
And then it was really restrictive. So banks have been complaining, and actually the regulator realized that they have to release an improved version. But still, the scope is really limited. PSD3 is about payments directive. Okay, and I tell you, we are going to the beyond regulation. So now, besides the PSD3, they are releasing the FIDA, and the FIDA is touching that beyond regulation. It's trying to regulate the beyond regulation, what I tell you, and that will be a change. Because now, for example, we are offering loans, which is not in PSD3, but it may be touched by FIDA. So we had to really read it thoroughly and find out what else. Maybe you see a lot of banks have now the regulatory APIs and the premium APIs. Maybe we will have to do the premium APIs out of what the FIDA requests, because the FIDA will be a minimum request for certain products.
And finally, how has BBVA looked to utilize open banking in your operations? And are there any new developments that you're working on that you could potentially tell us about?
Well, as I told you now, we have open banking portals already in Spain, in Turkey, in Mexico, in Peru, and we are starting now Colombia and Argentina. Colombia is about to start now. Argentina is a little bit behind. In each one of them, we try to have a custom offering of APIs. Of course, we have a minimum set of APIs within our APIs to offer, but we can see different needs of APIs, whether it's in Spain or in America. For example, in Spain, we are like favoring now enterprises and SMEs APIs. We started with the retail APIs, but then retail API is a little bit like a like a bet, right? You think that maybe a customer will need something, and well, you just try it, and actually some APIs are needed. But for enterprises, there is a captive need of the SMEs. They have been underserved always, so they really need reconciliation APIs. They need like loan for bills. They need like working capital. So there are some recurrent needs from the SMEs, and we found that they are really well welcome of those APIs. Whereas for now South America or even North America, we find that maybe account, because there is more unbanked population over there, and opening accounts for collectives, for example, for enterprises, and for the people working those enterprises is working really well.
Super, and thank you so much for sharing what BBVA are doing and innovating.
Okay.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at Finovate.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, and really glad to talk to you.
And you, thank you.